you felt it too, right? The moment Aunt Gladys appeared on screen, something was off. Not scary in the way horror movies are supposed to be scary, something deeper, something familiar. And I'm going to tell you exactly why Aunt Gladys doesn't belong in the Weapons movie. I don't mean that as a criticism, I mean that literally. She is an American horror story character, trapped inside someone else's script. And by the end of this video, I'm going to prove it to you. Here's what I find most fascinating about Aunt Gladys. She doesn't operate like a traditional horror movie antagonist. Most villains in film, they're simple. They hunt, they kill, they possess. They have a goal, a methodology, a finish line. You understand what they want even if you don't understand why they want it. Aunt Gladys has none of that. Every scene involving her carries this weight, this sense that she knows something nobody else in the room knows, and that she's not going to tell you. Not because she's withholding it, because telling you isn't her function. And here's where it gets strange. Because if you've watched enough American Horror Story, and I mean really watched it, you've felt this before. That same unease, that same sense that a character isn't operating inside your reality. Let me start with the undeniable fact. Most horror movie villains are threats. They're scary because of what they might do. AHS villains, the truly great ones, are scary because of what they are. Sister Jude wasn't terrifying because she was powerful. She was terrifying because she existed inside a reality governed by rules you didn't understand and couldn't appeal to. Constance Langdon, the Butcher, Shakath, not monsters, not in the traditional sense. Guardians of horror, keepers of secrets. And Aunt Gladys? She fits that mold so perfectly it's almost impossible to unsee once you notice it. She feels less like a person and more like an institution, as if she's been there forever, watching, waiting, knowing. I'm not ranking these theories by how likely they are. I'm ranking them by how terrifying they are. Number 4 is disturbing. Number 1 is the kind of thing that changes how you watch horror entirely. Theory number 4, the Coven witch. Let's start here because it's the easiest fit. If you dropped Aunt Gladys into American Horror Story Coven tomorrow, she wouldn't just belong. She'd feel like she'd been there the whole time, waiting for the script to catch up. Here's the thing about Coven that people forget. Not every witch was throwing fireballs or resurrecting the dead. Some specialized in something far older. Ancient knowledge, prophecy, manipulation, generational curses, the kind that don't announce themselves until decades after they've been planted. What's more dangerous? A witch who can kill you, or a witch who's known how you die since before you were born? Aunt Gladys carries exactly that energy. The woman who knows everyone's darkest secrets before they've even told her. The kind of witch who never needs to raise her voice, because she already knows how the story ends. Imagine her as a forgotten Salem descendant, not the supreme, something older. Coven's hierarchy was always about power, who had the most, who could wield it. But there's a type of horror Coven never fully explored. The witch so old and so patient that even the Supreme fears her. Not because she's stronger, because she's older. And in horror mythology, older is almost always worse. But here's the thing. A Coven witch, even a terrifying one, is still human, still mortal. Theory number 3? That's where we leave human behind entirely. Theory number 3. The murder house ghost. What if Aunt Gladys isn't alive at all? One reason she feels so disconnected from everyone around her, it's not just her dialogue or her stillness. It's that she behaves almost like a ghost pretending to be human. Let's pause for a second. Think about how Aunt Gladys moves through her scenes. She doesn't react to danger the way a living person does. She observes it, almost like she's taking notes, almost like she's seen this before, hundreds of times. That's a very murder house concept. In American Horror Story Murder House, the ghosts often appeared completely normal, until they didn't. The horror didn't come from jump scares. It came from the slow realization that they were never operating inside the same reality as the living. Imagine Aunt Gladys as a spirit tied to a location. Not the house from the movie, but something older. A figure cursed to repeat the same cycle, appearing whenever tragedy approaches. Here's what makes this theory uniquely disturbing. She's not causing the horror. She's simply witnessing it. A grim reaper disguised as a kindly relative. That's the asymmetry that makes her so effective. You can't fight someone who isn't fighting you. You can't escape something that isn't chasing you. She's not an antagonist. She's an omen. Theory number 2 moves in a different direction entirely. Because what if Aunt Gladys isn't tied to a house or a coven or even a place? What if she's tied to something far more fundamental? Theory number 2, the Angel of Death. Longtime AHS fans remember one of the franchise's most chilling figures, Shakath, the Angel of Death. She wasn't evil, she wasn't good. Those categories didn't apply to her. She simply arrived when death was near. Not to cause it, not to stop it, to witness it. What if Aunt Gladys serves the same function? Notice something? How often she feels adjacent to terrible events? Never fully responsible, never entirely separate. Almost as if she's been assigned to watch suffering unfold. Not intervene, not stop it, just observe. This is, in some ways, more disturbing than a conventional villain, because you can't defeat someone who isn't trying to win. You can't negotiate with a force that has no stake in the outcome. She's not your enemy. She's not your ally. She's simply present. And there is something deeply, existentially wrong about a presence that witnesses horror without reacting to it. The clinical term for what Aunt Gladys might represent here is existential threat asymmetry. Most horror operates on a simple equation: threat to response to resolution. But an Angel of Death figure breaks that equation. There is no response that matters, no resolution available, just presence and waiting. But I want to make you a promise before we get to theory number 1. Everything I've shown you so far, the witch, the ghost, the angel, those are interpretations. Theory number 1 is different. It's the one that explains why Aunt Gladys doesn't just feel like she belongs in AHS. It explains why she might be one of the most dangerous characters in that universe. Theory number 1. The Antichrist's Shepherd. Cosmic horror. Okay, this is where things become nightmare fuel. In American Horror Story Apocalypse, evil isn't merely an action. It's not something you do. It's a force. A cosmic infection that spreads through bloodlines, through institutions, through time itself. What if Aunt Gladys is one of its caretakers? Not the devil, not the Antichrist. Something subtler, something more patient. A shepherd. Someone whose purpose is to nurture darkness until it's ready to emerge into the world. Not dramatically, not with fire and brimstone. Quietly, patiently, over decades. Keep that thread in mind, it's going to matter. Because here's the thing about systemic evil. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't wear a black hat or deliver monologues. It plants seeds, small ones, invisible ones. Seeds nobody notices until years later when they've already grown into something unstoppable. Now go back and look at every Aunt Gladys scene through that lens. Every cryptic statement becomes more terrifying. Every strange interaction feels deliberate, orchestrated. Every appearance, even the ones that seemed random, suddenly feels like she was exactly where she needed to be. Planting something, shifting something, waiting. That's exactly the type of slow-burn horror Ryan Murphy's universe thrives on. Evil not as an event, evil as a process. How many people has she guided into darkness without them ever realizing she was the one holding the door open? The irreversibility metric applies here perfectly. The damage she represents isn't physical. You can heal from a wound. It's not even psychological in the traditional sense. It's spiritual, ideological. She doesn't break you. She redirects you. And by the time you realize what you've become, you can't trace it back to her. That's what makes her the most dangerous kind of AHS entity. Not the one that kills you, the one that makes you complicit in your own corruption. But here's the biggest reason Aunt Gladys reminds people of American Horror Story. It's not her dialogue, it's not her appearance, it's not even her mystery. It's that she embodies a specific type of horror, one that modern horror has largely forgotten how to do. Modern horror focuses on what happens: jump scares, gore, chase sequences. What's going to happen next? Who's going to die? Will they escape? American Horror Story, at its best, focuses on something entirely different. What shouldn't exist. And Aunt Gladys feels like something that shouldn't exist. A character who arrives carrying decades of untold stories. A person who seems bigger than the plot itself. The audience immediately senses there's a mythology behind her, whether the movie explains it or not. That's the permanent scar Aunt Gladys leaves. Not physical, not psychological in the clinical sense. It's ideological. She changes how you understand the world she occupies. After encountering her, you don't just fear what's in the dark. You fear that the dark has a structure, a purpose, a shepherd. And that's exactly how AHS introduces its greatest villains. Not as people, as legends, as forces that were already moving long before the story started and will keep moving long after it ends. So is Aunt Gladys secretly part of American Horror Story? No, at least not officially. But spiritually, structurally, in the architecture of how she creates fear, she might be one of the most American Horror Story coded characters we've seen in years. Whether she's a forgotten witch, a wandering ghost, a shepherd of some ancient darkness, or simply a woman carrying secrets nobody should know, she belongs in the same conversation as the franchise's most unforgettable nightmares. And honestly, if Ryan Murphy announced tomorrow that Aunt Gladys was joining American Horror Story, would anyone really be surprised? Because some characters don't feel like they belong to one story. They feel like they've been haunting all of them. Drop a comment. Which of these 4 theories do you think fits Aunt Gladys best? The Coven Witch, the Murder House Ghost, the Angel of Death, or the Antichrist's Shepherd? I read every single one. And if you're new here, this is what Villainologist does. We go deeper. Subscribe because there is so much more to come. And remember, the scariest monsters aren't the ones chasing you. They're the ones who already know where you're going.